The clock is ticking towards another potential strike among Canada Post workers, and it could have a major impact on businesses across the country. Christina Santini, the Director of National Affairs for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, joins us now virtually. Christina, thank you so much for being with us today. I want to start with the businesses you represent, small and medium-sized organizations here. How are they feeling as these negotiations continue, and just how much of a reliance is there on Canada Post?
Clearly, they're bracing themselves. It's another unpredictability. Plans that they had are now thrown up in the air. What extent do our members rely on Canada Post? Well, about 79% of them have told us that they rely on Canada Post either to distribute flyers, to send out invoices, to receive payments, or to ship their products day to day. So it will impact their business in many different ways, and some to a greater extent than others. Um, for example, the strike last November, December, hit about 75% of our members in a negative way and cost over $1 billion to small business owners.
That's quite significant here. And you mentioned last year's postal strike, which happened during the extremely busy holiday season here. Do you think that these businesses recovered from those impacts?
No, some of them lost the sales and they lost it for the year, right? If you are a card business and you mail out holiday cards to your clients, well, chances are that was your peak period. You've lost on that sale. You're hoping to recover in the months ahead, and this might be another shock just before Father's Day, just before some of the other key holidays that are coming. But Christmas was a key peak period for many businesses. Does not mean that some businesses won't be adversely affected. Now it's another stress on top of tariffs, on top of high costs of doing business as a business that has been rising. It's yet another stress business owners have to go through and live through.
Yeah, and your organization, CFIB, has been calling for some reforms here to the Canada Post business model. Can you talk a little bit about what sort of changes you're proposing?
So absolutely, we know last week there was a report that was tabled by William Kaplan, who it was an industry inquiry commissioner, and he basically stated a lot of recommendations that were stated 10 years ago, where as it's currently operating, Canada Post is not financially sustainable, and the government's going to keep on having to subsidize its operations, and it's supposed to be able to operate on its own in a viable way without taxpayers subsidizing it. So what that means is, focusing or reducing the frequency of certain services and how often it mails out, let's say, day-to-day mail. It means maybe using more community mailboxes. These are a lot of the recommendations we've heard previously. What we're calling for is basically for government to support the Crown Agency in moving forward and implementing these changes that it needs to ensure its long-term viability. Because what it's done so far is told Canada Post, step down, don't make these huge changes, which could end up irking the union. So really, let Crown the Crown Corporation, Canada Post, do what it needs to do so that its operations are viable.
During last year's postal strike, we saw the federal government intervening, and so there was kind of a temporary pause on these negotiations here as these workers went back to work because of the federal government. What do you think needs to happen for a deal to be made? And do you think there is that pressure on both sides for a deal to be reached?
So, I mean, I'll just state what I state to everyone. Ideally, a deal would be reached at the negotiating table. We hope that a strike will be averted, that the two parties can come and reach out an arrangement, one that recognizes modern times, the fact that mail service delivery or postal delivery, especially package, is now pretty much a 7 days a week business, etc. But yes, it could be very difficult for the two parties to reach that agreement if they're wanting to maintain their exact position. So we hope that the government will intervene and say, this is where you need to resolve the impasses. This was a report from the Industrial Inquiry Commission. And again, we do think Canada Post needs to implement some of these changes and proceed to support them. that would be what would see the government's role in terms of making sure there is a Canada Post in the future. It is relevant. It is a needed service. We know from the last strike that, even the minister said Canada Post is highly utilized by small business owners, by seniors, by rural and remote communities where many of the private sector competitors aren't operating and actually end up providing their package to Canada Post to deliver the last mile. And then, of course, those are key segments of the population that still have a need. And that, particularly in the case of small business owners, you have another strike coming. Your volumes have already been going down. They may be going down again because they're going to be forced to try to find an alternative that's more predictable. Right now, Canada Post's key advantage has been that it has been more affordable and accessible for everyone.
Okay, let's hope that a deal is reached before that Friday deadline. Christina Santini with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.